Hello everybody, welcome to Green Chat. My name is Cleeze, and this is a 2 of 4 part series covering the healers coming up in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today we'll be covering the Shaman, and shortly to follow we have the Druid. And then I'm going to be making a video that covers the balance between the classes, the healers, that is. Or at least compares the classes to see which one is right for you or your raid team. Otherwise, each video will be totally focused interdependently on the class it's covering. And with that, let's get started. Alright guys, so I like to start out with the basics. Let's cover the basics of the Shaman, which is like the race and then their lore that they have in their site, because I like that stuff. So Shamans can be Archai, Elf, Human, Ogre, Scar. If you have no idea what those races are, you can look it up on the website pantheonmmo.com. So the lore of the Shaman, here we go. It is rumored that Shamans live in every age at once. It's a second sight, allowing them to sense the threads of energy woven through Terminus's past. It is this unique gift that allows Shamans to discern the ancestry of friend or foe, welding this knowledge in the form of powerful boons or frightful banes. Alright, so Shaman lore covered. Moving on, we have group role. They're a healer, support, utility. Combat resource will be mana and vision. We'll get into vision in 1 second. Available armor, cloth, leather, and light mail. Available weapons will be one-handed blunt, two-handed blunt, one-hand piercing, and shields. So Shamans will gain vision as a percent of their effective healing they perform. What effective healing is basically you have to move their health bar for that to be effective healing. If they lose 10 hit points, you heal them for 20. You've only gained 10 points of effective healing, recovery. So if they're at full health and you cast heals on them, that's 0 effective healing. If they're almost dead and you cast a major heal on them, that's probably a full effective healing of that actual ability. So you'll get full effect from that. Sorry, I'm covering effective healing way too much. The more vision they have, the faster they can cast up to a threshold. I expect you will simply lose vision the longer you remain out of combat. That's kind of a guess. Alright, so something of interest that is unique to Shamans will be Command of Agewalker's Companion. In addition, they will be able to slow enemies' attacks and quicken their allies' attacks. Agewalker Companion is every Shaman begins their journey with a spirit companion, usually in the form of a spirit wolf cub or a spirit bear cub. In this form, the spirit companion will stay by your side, but it will not interact with your enemies or environment in any way. At level 10, the Shaman will lead their spirit companion through a rite of passage, turning the cub into its adult form. In this state, your spirit companion begins aiding you in battle. That's a little typo there. Begins aiding you in battle at your command. It will also grow in strength as you do, gaining access to a host of unique abilities along the way. So guys, I broke up the Shaman's abilities into different categories to make it more digestible and for you guys to be able to absorb all these abilities, because there's a ton of them to go through. And the way they're broken up on the website is a little confusing in a way if you're trying to go through the capabilities of the Shaman. So in this form, it's just more digestible. The categories I have is buff to self, buff to targets or target, buff, debuff to status, NPC, or player, damage, utility, crowd control, heal over time, AoE group heals, direct healing, shielding, recovery, removal of status effects, likely major cooldowns for the Shaman, and special items to note on the Shaman. Also guys, understand that some of these abilities do have overlap, so I tried keeping them in the category that best represents that ability. Just so you guys know, in case you're like, hey, that ability probably should belong in a different category. I just did again to make it more digestible. And also try to break up this to accommodate those also interested in PvP. However, it's more geared us PvE folks. And one thing to note before we totally crack into it is how defensive targets and offensive target works. Aaron Miller brought this to my attention a couple weeks ago, so I figured it'd be good before we jump in. So defensive targets is you can focus defensive target, so any abilities that you cast while you have no target basically targeted that, or if you have an offensive target, like a bad guy targeted, any of your defensive abilities will go to that defensive target. Same thing with offensive target. If you have your tank targeted and you cast slow, for example, on the Shaman, it will go to your offensive target that you have selected. Also, any passive abilities, defensive and debuffs, depending on their function, I subclass them into like archetypes for simplicity. Alright guys, so let's jump into the abilities of the Shaman. So first we're going to start off with buff to self. We have Chase the Wind. Wind Boom. You summon a gale of wind to propel you forward, greatly increasing your movement speed by X for Y seconds. This would be awesome in encounters where you need that to gain ground. Primordial Bonds. Passive ability. Your healing abilities will heal you for X of the effective healing of others. So that's pretty awesome. You won't really need to cover yourself because you're healing other people probably more than one target, especially with regens. Adept's Theory. You peer deeply into the ancient mysteries of Terminus, increasing your wisdom by X for Y duration. That's just a basic buff. Also, we have Keeper of Elemental Mysteries. Passive ability, you receive an X% bonus to your healing abilities for each elemental school you have active on an offensive target. Water, fire, earth, wind, animus, ancestral. So that's pretty cool. Next category is buff to targets or targets. So we got Primal Fury. Ancestral boon fills your ally with Primal Fury, increasing their critical strike chance of physical and magical abilities by X%. While active, every successful strike will further increase the critical strike chance up to Y% for the duration of the effect. Then we have Grip of the Crags. Ancestral boon. Imbue yourself and the members of your group with the nature of ancient mountain dwellers, increasing strength and stamina by X for Y duration. And then we have Reptilian Veil, an Animus boon. Imbue yourself and the members of your group with the nature of the ancient dragons of the sea, increasing poison and disease resistance by X and natural health regeneration rate by Y% for Z duration. There's a lot of A, B, C, Y, Z's in there. And then we have Mark of the Fire Claw. Fire boon, imbue yourself and the members of your group with the nature of the ancient dragons of air, increasing fire and nature resist by X and agility and dexterity by Y for Z duration. So you can see they get a ton of buffs. And then they have Sky Mane's Memento. A wind boon fills your ally with the nature of the ancient Sky Manes. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Increases their attack speed by X% for Y duration. And that's going to be a really sought after buff there. And then we have Interlocking Stones. An Earth boon, you create a network of interlocking stones around yourself and the members of your group, increasing armor class by X for Y duration. Alright, so next category we have is debuff status to player or NPC. Now this is quite a long list, so get those notepads ready if you're really into the Shaman. Also to mention, a lot of their debuffs also deal damage, so you can almost compress damage that Shamans do, at least on this one I did, damage and debuffs into the same category. So first up we have Shackles of the Dust Eater. An Ancestral Bane inflicts your enemy with the nature of the ancient Dust Eaters, decreasing their strength and stamina by X and slows their combat resource generation by Y for Z duration. And then you have Sting of the Scorpion. This is Animus Bane, a Bane of potent venom, damaging your enemies over time with nature damage and making them more vulnerable to nature-based attacks. And then you have Choking Mists, Water Bane, a Bane that sucks the moisture from your enemy's body, damaging them over time with nature damage and making them more vulnerable to poison and disease-based attacks. You kind of see where we're going with this here. And the next up we have Deluge. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's a Water Bane, a Bane that drenches all enemies in the target area with a viscous moisture. I looked up viscous because I was like, what the heck? Viscous is having a thick, sticky consistency between solid and liquid, having a high viscosity. Slowing their movement speed and disrupting their health regeneration for X duration causes affected targets to become wet. Nice. And then we have Wreath of Coals. It's a Fire Bane, a Bane of excruciating flame, damaging your enemy over time with nature damage and making them more vulnerable to fire-based attacks. So that'll help out anybody toss a fireball at these guys. Then you have Scorched Fog. It's a Primal Bane. Fire amplifies a Fire Bane on your enemy, creating a dense cloud of black smoke that obscures their vision, slowing their attack speed by X% and making their melee attacks more likely to land as glancing blows for Y duration. And then you have Weathering, which is an Earth Bane. You erode the earthen elements within your enemy's armor, reducing their armor class by X for Y duration. So that covers the debuffs of the Shaman, and there's a ton. So that's definitely going to be their main focus in a group as far as the utility goes, which is pretty cool. It's actually really cool how it interacts. It's not just you simply debuff people. You have to do damage and they bounce off each other to really achieve your goals, which is pretty neat. You can't just easily, cast one thing. You got to kind of set up your debuffs in a way for them to make sense. The next category we got is damage. They only really have one ability that just does damage for the most part, at least at this time, and that's Fang of Harun. It's a Primal Curse, Animus. Amplifies the Animus Bane on your enemy to release a surge of deadly venom into their veins, inflicting nature damage. Okay, so next category we got is utility. Ancient Focus, passive ability. Because the Shaman's temporal freedom, their health and mana generation rates do not slow while in combat, which is really nice. So basically in combat, normally your resources will slow to a different rate than out of combat. and theirs do not. Then they have their Age Walker's Companion. We've already covered that. It's basically their Spirit Cub Bear or Spirit Wolf Cub, or excuse me, Spirit Bear Cub or Spirit Wolf Cub. That at level 10 matures to the point where it actually assists you in combat. Before that, it's just a little spirit that follows you around. They also have Age Walker's Gift. It's a passive ability. Upon death, you will enter an ethereal state for X duration before returning to your bind location. While in this state, you are undetectable to your enemies. Also, you may interact with your physical corpse by dragging it to a different location within X meters of where you died. So maybe you'll have a limit as far as you can go with this ability, as far as dragging your body. So you couldn't like cheat it and get across the zone or something like that. When this effect ends, your defensive target will regain X% of their max health and mana. You cannot drag the corpses of other players while in this state. You may use Part the Veil while in this state. We're going to cover Part the Veil later. It's in recovery, but I'll jump back to this one as far as making that make more sense. We also have Walk the Ages. Mark a moment in time, leaving an imprint of your spirit where you currently are standing for X duration. When you activate Walk the Ages again, you will instantly return to this location. You cannot cross zone lines with this ability. So this is really sweet. We'll cover this in more depth later, but Walk the Ages is also, dang, it's just so cool. Shaman's got some cool stuff. All right, so next category is crowd control. Headwinds. Wind Bane. Bombard your enemy with cross-cutting winds, distracting them and reducing their aggro and assist radius by X meters for Y duration. So basically, if you have a pack, or excuse me, you have two mobs that are kind of close to each other, you're like, I don't know, if we pull one, we might get the other. You can cast Headwinds on one that you don't want to pull to reduce their area of assist affected, so to speak. So basically, you can pull one without getting the other. All right, so now we're moving on to the healing of the Shaman. So we're going to start with Heal Over Time because this ability kind of works its way into different abilities that the Shaman can do. So you have Mantle of Mist. It's a water boon, a powerful ability that heals your ally over time, recovering up to X% more health with each pulse the longer the effect lasts. And in the AoE group heals category, we have Gift of the Rainlands. It's a water boon. You send forth a rush of restorative waters, healing each member of your group over time for X duration. If Mantle of the Mist, like we just described, is active on the target, the healing pulses of this ability will critically heal. And then we have Hurry the Past. All healing over time abilities on you or your group members will instantly finish their duration, directly healing their target for the remaining amount. So whatever's left on that regen will just instantly pop out and heal those guys. These abilities are then refreshed on their targets as if they were just applied. So that is pretty sweet. In a pinch, the Shaman can just bump their group up if they need to. And it also reapplies everything with a brand new basically dot that was previously applied. So next up we have Direct Healing, and this one is kind of weird. I'll do my best here. It's Hand of Aivelu. I can't even say that word. It's A-I-V-E-L-U. So it's Primal Oath, water. Amplifies the water boon on an ally, creating a surge of healing waters that directly heals your target ally for a moderate amount and the members of your group for a small amount. Personally, I know it's a group heal in a way, but it looks like that the group heal would probably be insignificant to the amount that it'll actually heal that one target for a moderate amount. It seems like moderate amount seems to be a key word here for the direct healing abilities of the healers. All right, so next up for the Shaman, we have Shielding, which is Gate of the Forgotten Eras. Ancestral Boon, you open an ancestral gateway around a member of your group. While the gateway is active, the member of the group is unable to move and all damage against them is delayed for X seconds. When the gateway closes, the total damage will be dispersed evenly among your group, only usable on yourself or a member of your group. So that is a pretty sweet cooldown to deal with a massive amount of incoming damage on one player. And the next category we got is Recovery, Removal of Status Effects. So they have Part the Veil, which I keyed in about earlier. You guide the spirit of a fallen ally back to their physical body, restoring them to life. Causes resurrection sickness. Cannot use this ability while in combat. Using this ability while Age Walker's Gift is active will restore a fallen ally to life with full health and mana, and is usable in combat. When used in this way, this ability will not cause resurrection sickness. So basically, if the Shaman dies, they get that ability where they can drag their own corpse and they're in the ethereal state. They can use Part the Veil at this time. They can also use it while they're alive too, but while they're dead and in the ethereal state, they can use Part the Veil to kind of as a combat res if they need it. Now, we don't know if they can actually res themselves with this because it doesn't really dictate that, but if they needed to, they could res another person kind of in a combat sense, which is kind of weird, kind of a special niche circumstance, but at the same time, it's pretty cool. Makes your battle res is that much more valuable. Next, we have Cleansing Flame. Carefully apply a plume of fire to purge your ally of poison or disease. So next up, we have likely major cooldowns for the Shaman. I kind of just tossed both these in there. So a lot of the Shaman abilities doesn't look like it's gonna be on a crazy cooldown because a lot of them are, you know, kind of status effect required, like you need to be dead or things like that to use them. So they might not have crazy cooldowns, but Hurry the Pass was one to me that seemed like it would be on a pretty decent cooldown. That's the all healing over time abilities on your group of members will instantly finish their duration, and then those dots get reapplied to them. Then we also have Walk of the Ages. Mark a moment in time, leaving an imprint on your spirit where you currently are standing for expiration. When you activate Walk of the Ages again, you will instantly return to this location. So basically you can, what this can do for you is there's so many different things and unique ways of dealing with encounters. Like if you need to get out of something and then immediately back to your position, you know, in the blink of an eye is really where this is useful and is really powerful, especially when mobility comes into play. If you need to move to a certain location, do something, and then move back. So moving on, these are some special items to note on the Shaman. I just jotted down a couple of abilities here that really set the Shaman apart from other classes. So we have Agewalker's Companion, which is its wolf or bear that you'll be able to use. It'll also be able to do some abilities, we think. They didn't really display any here, but expect them. We also have Agewalker's Gift, where you have the ability to drag your body on death. Also, when you die, you will give some health and mana back to your defensive target. We have Part the Veil, which is pretty much a res when you do die, and Agewalker's Gift is active. You will be able to get battle res, essentially, and then you can do Part the Veil. It looks like, let's see, you guide your fallen back to ally and physical body, restoring them to life. You can also do it while you are not in combat, just as a regular res, but it causes resurrection sickness, and you cannot use this ability in combat. You can't use it in combat unless you're dead. So then you have Sky Main's Memento, which is haste, which is really cool. Cursing Flame, cure poison or disease, and then Walk the Ages, which is that teleportation ability we're talking about, where you can set a point in time, move across the room, and then teleport back. Super useful in raid encounters or encounters and in general. Then you have Hurry the Past. All healing over time abilities on you and your group members will instantly finish. And then we have Deluge, which is that water bane, which pretty much slows enemies and makes them get wet. Nothing like getting targets wet. And then lastly, if something to note, they will get Scorch Fog, which will pretty much lower the attack speed of any enemy that you are against, which is super useful. Granted, some enemies might resist this in some way, but in general, a very awesome ability. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps it up for what we know right now about the Shaman. This only covers the abilities that VR has decided to present to us. During the interviews, again, they've mentioned that there will be many more abilities and ways to develop your abilities. They just kind of want you to discover that through the game and enjoy it, kind of not get it spoiled to you in that effect. A lot of the abilities that we do have also, like I just mentioned, will grow in power, and this is definitely not the extent of the class's toolkit, but it gives you a good general idea. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you guys think about the Shaman. I'll also be creating a video that centers around how healers will compare and compete with one another, so if that interests you, please check it out. Please consider liking and subscribing if you guys like what you saw, and again, you have to hit that little bell next to subscribe to get any notifications for future uploads that I do. If you have any questions or tips for me, please do not hesitate to comment below. And again, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.